All right, board gaming enthusiasts, the question of the day, what is the best lifestyle board game out there right now? And I'm going to offer my vote. We're going to turn it over to your vote because it could be an amazing title that I'm missing out on. We can have multiple lifestyle games. But first, let's jump in and look at this idea of criteria. If we look at the evolution of board games, there was this idea compared to, say, traditional role-playing games or war games or even some card-type games where you could sit down and in a nice compact rule set, literally within the spans of a board, that is the gaming universe, have an adventure, have a scenario, have a competition, have a battle, play with your friends, essentially get in and get out. This idea that setup time is minimal, pack away time is minimal, rules are somewhat minimal. Think of it as a very, very hyper-focused experience. But over time, of course, ideas evolve. Board games have evolved. They've gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And not just more miniatures and more tokens, but in terms of expansions. Years and years ago, the idea of an expansion would be like, why do we need an expansion? Just that should have been included in the original release. But we see expansions, we see character packs, we see scenario packs, we see adventure packs. Bigger, bigger, bigger. Layering on and over upgrading components, the upgraded component pack. Well, why not just give us those components in the first place? Essentially following a DLC model. But a lifestyle game is not necessarily one that has massive sprawl and massive amounts of figures. I'm going to pull in an example from my own collection, a title that if you've been following me and looking at my board gaming tactica and playlists, I love this title. So I put that out there, Massive Darkness. I would not qualify Massive Darkness as a lifestyle game. It has a lot of miniatures. It has half a dozen expansions. There's multiple scenarios. There's a campaign. You can play solo without the campaign, just individual adventures. And it's very immersive. It's very big. It takes up tons and tons of table space. But is it a lifestyle game? I define a lifestyle game as really the perfect synergy, the perfect blend of a couple of things. The first is being able to have a system that evolves as you play. A lot of people like to think of legacy games as lifestyle games. That is one criteria. The idea behind a legacy game is that it grows and it changes and it evolves as you play and the more you play. So literally the first time you sit down and play, whether it's a campaign system or one that changes the board, each and every time you're building a literal living history with this game as you move, as it evolves, as it pushes forward. On top of that, a lifestyle game is one that you can play and play and play and play. And I'm not talking about in terms of complexity. I'm talking about in terms of scenario, campaign, evolving, one that literally could occupy more time in your life than possibly is probably good for you, but multiple plays, numerous adventures, numerous scenarios, numerous missions. And then on top of that, pulling in this idea of after you've played it all, after you've done it all, the traditional replayability factors of a board game, such as trying scenarios with different characters, trying different builds within the characters, going on different adventure paths to see how it happens, or scenario paths, all that pulling together. Essentially, a lifestyle game is one that you've committed to play, and you're going to play and play and play and enjoy and play and play. It's not necessarily something that you just pull down entirely self-contained, get a play in, and put it back on your shelf. And a lifestyle game might be something that you play for a while and then revisit a few months later, or play constantly, then take a little break, or take a long break and come back. It's there and moving. So my vote for the best lifestyle game right now, then I'm going to turn it over to you guys. I would say Gloomhaven. And my vote is Gloomhaven. Gloomhaven hits all of these things. And I'm not just necessarily talking about theme. Admittedly, again, going back to the beginning of this vlog, I love dungeon crawlers. I love RPG. I love fantasy type games. I mean, the Gloomhaven narrative is right there. But even if, quite frankly, if you ported the rules and reskinned it to Space Haven, I'd be playing that also from that perspective. And what Gloomhaven does right as a lifestyle game, in my opinion, it's one that you can sit down with a group of friends or by yourself, play through a campaign where you make choices and there's new unlocks. It's literally, and I'm not going to give away any spoilers. That's important because maybe you're just beginning your gloomy journey. This idea of a blank map. And if you do this mission and make these choices, it goes to here. And if you do this mission and make those choices, it moves to there. There's new unlocks, new discoveries. There's new achievements. There's new magic items, an entire living, evolving world that it's not just go into the dungeon, beat the monsters, and level up. There's also this idea that you unlock characters. The character boxes are hidden. And depending on how the story evolves and how your individual characters go, you can unlock these new characters. So it's not only a changing game state, it's an achievement system game state. That's the genius of this. And then the final layer is random dungeons, revisiting it, or while it is a campaign story, you can have players jump in for a little while and play with their own characters. I kind of have 3 Gloomhaven groups going with my copy of it. The solo, where I'm just playing by myself. We also have a group that plays from time to time. We get together and wherever the characters are in that moment, we play. And then every now and then I'll bring it if we're doing an all-day gaming session and just set it up. And if some people want to just roll up a character and go through, I'll run a few adventures with my character, get a little gold, get a little spending pocket money in there to buy more stuff later on. That's my vote for a lifestyle game. So it's not necessarily a massive setup with tons of expansions. It's something a little bit deeper. It's an essence that's a little bit more from that perspective in play. So your vote, Gloomhaven, yes or no? Other titles, and we know Frosthaven is definitely, in my opinion, going to be a lifestyle game.